On this week's episode of Gambling Feud, we have the college basketball preview show with the man, the myth, and the legend. We got Mr. Polk Nation coming on once again to talk a little college hoops. We talk Wooden Award, players to watch, teams to watch, at college basketball championship odds, as well as who's going to win every single Power 6 conference. We got it all for you today. We're covering all bases with college basketball. Before we get started, we want to remind you all that the Gambling Feud podcast and the Coda Sports Gambling Network are sponsored by Better Edge. Better Edge is a social betting marketplace that is legal in 45 different states, and it operates like a marketplace. How does that work? Let me just use an example for you. Let's use the Michigan-Penn State game being played this weekend. One person on the platform likes Michigan money line and places $10 on that line. Another person on the platform likes Penn State money line. They place $10 on that line. Boom, you now got an exchange. That's what makes it legal. It's not person to sports book, it's person to person, which makes it legal in 45 different states. And how many sports books can you say this? If you don't like a line that you got a game at, you can create your own line. And if a person is on the other side of that, you get that line. How many sports books can you say that about? And a lot of sports books, they have juice lines and their spreads and over-unders. Better Edge is always minus 100, plus 100. You get such a higher payback for the users. They have so many competitions like Battle Royale, Survivor, Chaser, keeps things competitive. And they also incorporate social media. You can go and post your picks on a timeline. Your followers can see it. They can fade you to create an order, or they can ride with you as well. We love Better Edge here at the network. Go to their website, www.betteredge.com. Use promo code Kyle or DJ, and you get $20 added to your account. www.betteredge.com and use promo code Kyle or DJ. If you're ready, let's get to the college basketball preview show. Locked and loaded. Let's have a show. Welcome, everyone, to the Gambling Feud podcast presented by the Coda Sports Gambling Network. We're on episode 98. The vibes are really, really good right now. Me, DJ, and the guests spent about a half hour just talking about a number of different topics. We were talking already that we kind of wish we were recording during that and cut some parts out because we had a lot of good topics covered, from hockey to basketball to MLB to various colleges. We had a lot of good conversations. Unfortunately, we didn't record any of that, so it's just going to be between us three, which is fine in a sense. But the vibes are all-time high, but we're done talking about all those topics. We're here to talk college basketball. College basketball season started on Monday, so we got a lot of great things to talk about. Let's get to it. My name is Kyle Comas. You can find me on Twitter at CodaCapiKyle. And joining me for 98 episodes is my cousin and co-host. You can find him on Twitter at DJLove4422, DJ Luch. DJ, how are we doing today?
Kyle, I am doing great. We had a hell of an intro, just chopping it up, having fun. I'm in a great mood. I'm currently drinking a little Fireball apple cider. If you like Fireball, if you don't, it's not bad. It's like a cinnamon apple. If you like cinnamon applesauce, it's a good seasonal drink. I only recommend drinking it when it gets cold out. Yeah, there we go. He gets it. Fireball, yeah, he's got it. But yeah, no, I love college basketball. I don't know enough about college basketball, but I do love the sport. It's like March Madness, hands down, one of the best things of all sports things. Just phenomenal, like 10 out of 10 always. And so yeah, we're gonna kind of get into college basketball. It gives me hyped. March Madness is right around the corner, baby.
Absolutely. No, I'm so excited for it. Had a pretty even day yesterday when it went 5-4 plus 0.4 units. So not that great, but I mean, a positive day still nonetheless. And looked at the Hawks right now. They scored 56 at half against North Dakota. So Hawks are looking pretty solid, but we wanted to bring on a guest that we have staple guests for various different sports. And this guest has been on, I'm pretty sure, for every single college basketball preview we've had. He's the second ever guest on Gambling Feud. And as DJ said, just a great vibes guy. We talked to him for about 30 minutes about a bunch of random topics. We are so pumped to have him back on. We got Polk Nation, Zach Polk. Polk, how we doing today, buddy?
What's up, fellas? Doing well. We're just ready to talk some college basketball. Obviously, like DJ said, March Madness, great time of year, but the start of the basketball season is very exciting because the weather gets crappy and basketball gets good. And everybody has a chance right now. Everybody is feeling tournament ready. They think that this is going to be the year that they can, make a run in the tournament, and everybody's feeling good playing some low-level college teams at the moment. And some obviously are walking away upset. I think, You know, that we're a day after we're recording this, day after the start of the college basketball season, and some teams are, you know, already in the trenches and dealing with some really tough losses. But for the most part, all of us are 1-0, and everybody's feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we got a lot of great stuff to talk about with college basketball. We got a number of different topics, and we're just going to cover all bases of college basketball. And you know, Polk was on for the college basketball preview last year. He fought through it with me and DJ for our longest podcast by far, about a 3.5-hour podcast where we covered every single March Madness game, but one corner. Took about an hour and a half, so we had to get him back on here again. We were excited to get him back on here. I know he's one of the more busy men that we know with his day job, and we were glad we got him on. But gentlemen, if we're ready, let's just get right to it. I think we got a lot of different stuff to talk about here. Before we get to this topic, I'm excited about this topic because if you guys remember last year, so we're going to start with the Wooden Award. If you guys remember last year, all three of us, we gave like a lock and kind of a guy for value. Well, all three of us our lock took Shibwe, which understandably so. Shibwe was the man last year. But if you remember, Polk actually said Zach Edey is a good value pick, and he ended up winning the Wooden Award. So we were excited to get him back on because we got to give him his flowers there. I mean, before we even get started, Polk, I mean, you freaking nailed that last year.
Yeah, lucky for me, Zach Edey stayed healthy for a majority of the season, which is something that he didn't do basically his whole career. So last year was kind of the first time that he actually played a full season of basketball, and Purdue did what they usually do, which is dominate the regular season and then take a dump in the NCAA tournament. So pretty happy with that. He's now the favorite, I think, for the Wooden Award again this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be surprised, honestly, if he won it back-to-back years. So spoiler alert, he's not my guy this year.
All right. Well, let's get right to it then. So Wooden Award odds, I got like the top, I think like 10 guys currently for odds. These odds are via Caesars, by the way. So Wooden Award odds, we get the odds on favorite, as Polk said, Zach Edey at Purdue at plus 250, Hunter Dickinson at Kansas at plus 650, Kyle Filipowski at Duke at plus 800, Donovan Clingan at UConn at plus 1,000, Armando Bacot at UNC plus 1,400. And then we got Caleb Love at Arizona, Omar Ballo at Arizona, and Max Asmus at Texas, all at plus 2,000. So, Polk, you nailed it last year. So I would be remiss if I let me and DJ go first when you nailed it last year. So go ahead and start us off, Polk. What are your thoughts on the Wooden Award for this year?
Yeah, so if you listen back to those podcasts last year too, I was always really high on Kyle Filipowski. For the last year and a half that he's been playing college basketball, I've been saying to anybody that will listen, if you are a big or you know a kid who is trying to be a big man in today's game, watch Kyle Filipowski. He can do everything. They obviously ran into some more tough teams last year who were able to knock him down and you know, get him out of their game. So hopefully Filipowski, for his sake, got a little bit tougher, a little stronger this year. But he is one of the guys that I think is going to be at the top of this list towards the end of the year. And I think somebody that everybody kind of forgets about, he is on the list, but Caleb Love is someone that was really talked about at UNC. Then he had the big thing go on where he transferred to Michigan, or they said he was going to Michigan. He committed to Michigan, and then something weird kind of happened, and all of a sudden rumors were coming out that he was decommitting from Michigan. He all of a sudden said, no, that's not the case. I'm going to Michigan. And then all of a sudden it just kind of blew up and nobody knew where he went. And all of a sudden he's at Arizona, and, you know, people are going to be watching Pac-12 at night and see Caleb Love and be like, oh crap, I forgot. Like, that dude could absolutely ball at UNC, and Arizona is going to be good again this year. So I think for value, Caleb Love is a good target there. Obviously, he's got a teammate on the list too, so that can maybe take away some votes, I guess, from Caleb Love if, you know, he has a couple tough games and Ballot kind of takes over and, you know, whatever. But I think Caleb Love at plus 2,000 is a pretty good value take. But again, I think Kyle Filipowski is going to be in the lead. I think Duke is going to have a really good team this year, and it's going to be one of those years that Duke is at the top for basically the whole season.
Okay, I like it. I'm gonna go off of yours a little bit, Polk, because I kind of agree with some of the stuff you said. I'm gonna give a guy that's not on the list, that I think is going to be really solid. I'm actually buying his stock this year, and that's Boogie Ellis at USC. I think he's going to be really, really good. You can get him on seasons at plus 7,000. I like USC a lot this year, and every single year that Boogie Ellis has been in college basketball, he's progressed. Last year, he was named to the All-Pac-12 first team. He averaged 18 points per game, shot nearly 38% behind the arc. The kid's a stud. I know people are going to overlook him because they got the number one recruit, Isaiah Collier, on their team. They got Bronny James whenever he comes back on their team. But I think Boogie's going to make this team go, and I think he's a good value play if you're looking at like a long shot value for plus 7,000. And my lock, actually, I'm going to go right with Polk. I like Kyle Filipowski too at plus 600. DJ said it multiple times with the Heisman Trophy, that the Heisman Trophy goes to the best player on the best team. And I think in a way the Wooden Award is the exact same. And I think Duke is going to be one of the best teams in college basketball, spoiler alert, this year. And Polk said basically every point I was going to make. If you're looking for a big man that's trying to play a big man role in college basketball, that's what Filipowski is. And he averaged 15.8 points per game last year, 8.9 rebounds. And he did that as a freshman on the first ever Duke team that wasn't coached by Coach K since probably the Stonehenge. So Duke is just, I like them a lot this year. And he opened up play Monday night. He had 25.7 boards. I think this is his year to shine. So I'm actually going to go right with Polk. I like Kyle Filipowski to win the Wooden as well.
Well, I didn't think that you guys would both be on Kyle as well as I'm going to pivot here. I think if you want to lock, I lean one of the bigs, whether it be Edey, Dickinson, or Filipowski. It seems like bigs, they get the rebounds, they get the blocks, they get the easy buckets. And especially with, Filipowski's able to shoot. I'm interested to see what Dickinson does at Kansas this year. Bill Self, great coach. Dickinson, obviously, it's done well, and it seems like he's been there since Garza, so I don't know how he's still in college, but whatever, COVID happened. I'm going to go with Max Abamas. I can't pronounce his last name.
A-Smith.
Yep, that works. He was the Oral Roberts superstar that took the 15 seed, dominated, and now he's at Texas. And, I think Texas has kind of been on the up and up, both in football and in basketball. And they've gotten more consistent and kind of gone back to what was more normal prior to the recent decade of awfulness. It was really Colt McCoy not playing against Alabama that broke them. Ever since that happened, they were trash. He chose for an NFL career, which he is the best backup quarterback in the league besides Chase Daniels, who has only played like 52 snaps and made over 20 million. So Chase Daniels does go down as the best backup in the league. Nonetheless, I think this Texas team is going to be dangerous, and this Max Cat can play. So I'll go him for a long shot at plus 2,000. I was trying to think. I thought there was one other long shot I like. I don't mind the Caleb Love. Caleb Love will either win you a game or lose you a game. He loves to shoot, and when he's on, it's tough to lose because he can just score. And when he's off, man, it's tough because he'll just shoot. The other team could be on like a 9-0 run, and he'll just come down and launch up a three. It's like, it would have been nice to get to the free throw line there, maybe get a shot at the rim. But he can, shoot you in, shoot you out. So I do like that as a long shot as well. A lot of good options, but I think in the end of the day, it's going to go to one of those top three. Baycott, I don't know if he'll stay healthy, so it's tough. It's really just choosing the player that's going to stay healthy is the big thing. Like, who's going to play? Which obviously you nailed it last year with Edey. Don't know exactly who it'll be this year, but a lot of good options out there.
For my curiosity, DJ, say we had you go first. Like, I know you went last.
I would have gone Filipowski.
You would have gone Filipowski.
100%.
Okay, I was curious.
Would have came off, lighting it up. This dude can score at the three. He can back to the basket. He's a great player. I 100% would have gone Filipowski.
Okay. Nope. I was just curious because I know you said I'm going to pivot here, so I'm like, did he have Filipowski too? So.
100% did, and I was like, well, we all went Sheboy last year, and we looked like idiots, and then old Polk here pivoted, and look, he looked like a genius. So I was like, well, let's learn from what worked and pivot and see if we can find one that works. So when Max wins it, or if Caleb Love wins it, I'll take a half point on Caleb Love.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Nope, that's fair. Okay. Sounds good. So let's stay on the player talk for a second. Let's just talk like just a general like players to watch. So I know we talked about Wooden guys, like obviously guys that we think are going to win that, the really, really best players. Let's talk maybe players that maybe you think might win Conference Player of the Year, but may not win the Wooden Award. Maybe a player that's in like a make or breaky or someone under the radar. Just a couple players that you think that should be watched this year in college basketball. I got a couple here. I got one in a they consider Big East a power conference school. So I got one in the Power Six.
Sure.
And
I think Big East is a power school when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, like they call it the Power Six.
Yeah,
for big with the Big East. So I got a Power Six player and I got a mid major player. I'll start with my mid major player, and this might hit home for DJ because he's around this area. I like Tucker DeVries a lot this year at Drake. This kid's a junior and he's made a massive impact since he got on the team. You know, he won NBC Newcomer of the Year his freshman year. He had 13.9 points per game last season. He improved tremendously. He averaged 18.9 points per game, shot nearly 38% behind the arc. He was the Missouri Valley Player of the Year last year. He's back again this year. I think if he continues to improve and build off of the years he's had, I think he could be one of the best mid-major players in the country. So I like Tucker DeVries a lot. I think he has a lot to show here. And then kind of an under-the-radar player in the Big 12, and I'm not sure if either of you two are going to know who this is, which is why I like talking about it. But I like Ray J. Dennis at Baylor. People have concerns with Baylor this year. They lost a lot of productivity from last year, but they got a huge get in this Ray J. Dennis. Dennis was a unanimous selection for MAC Player of the Year last year. He helped Toledo back-to-back regular season championships. He averaged 19.5 points per game, 5.8 assists. He's going into a really well-coached system that Scott Drew has, and he has even greater talent around him here than he did at Toledo. So I think the sky's the limit for him. He's already won Conference Player of the Year. He's on to a Big 12 school now. I like Ray J. Dennis a lot. So those are kind of two players I think that should be watched for, Ray J. Dennis and Tucker DeVries.
That transfer portal is just wild, dude. Like back in the old days, you just stuck at that small school and you were just always at Toledo, and you had a chance maybe to make a run. And now it's like, oh, you light it up at a small school and immediately transfer to a top 20 program.
Yeah, at the very least, it was like maybe you could get a grad transfer. Like you could get that guy from, Toledo or from, wherever it was that like he was great for 4 years there. And then they loved him and they were like, all right, now like you are our guy. You did the best you could. You won us the Sun Belt Championship. Now go on and play at Michigan and we'll follow you to Michigan. And all those people that were freaking, McNeese State fans because this guy fucking was there for 4 years. Like now they're all Michigan fans because they're a guy, their fifth-year guy who's, trying to make it at Michigan. But now it's like that guy has a 20-10 season at Michigan or at McNeese State. All of a sudden, boom, he's gone. And it's like, damn, like that would suck.
Yeah, for those smaller schools, it really does destroy a lot of those smaller schools. Because there was one of the MVC dudes, like one of the top players in the MVC, I think he was from Valparaiso or whatever. He's actually at Iowa now. He's a big old center. He's like 6'10" or something like that. He was a good player in the MVC. It's like why wouldn't you want to play for a bigger school?
Yeah.
Like I can't blame the players.
Yeah.
But man, coaching at those teams is gotta be tough.
Hard to retain players at that.
For sure. It's destroying smaller schools is what it's doing. And it's not as evident in football because football's kind of weird. You need a lot of guys. But in basketball, when it's like one dude can like save your season, like that Max Cat did with Oral Roberts, it does kind of matter.
Right. Can you imagine though, like I'm thinking of like players like a mid-majors that made like deep runs. Like, can you imagine like a CJ McCollum or a Steph Curry like at a big school?
Yeah, because they both made runs with Davidson and Lehigh.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing though, is it's also a catch-22 because it's like, I've been famously, not as high on Steph Curry as a lot of people are, but if you ask Steph Curry, okay, do you like, let's say after that Davidson run, do you want to go to Duke and play a full year at Duke and see your stock possibly, shrink? You have a better chance of, maybe winning a national title. But if you're playing with a bunch of people around you and maybe it's not the perfect system that he ended up being in, going to Golden State and having that, build around him and having like that Golden State like perfection that they built over there, like things happen for a reason, obviously, but it's just like sometimes, it can work the other way too, where maybe a guy goes to Iowa and it's, he's a Des Moines kid. He goes to Iowa and he plays 1 year and he's like, man, like I didn't get the time I wanted. I didn't, whatever. He's like, you can transfer down too now, which is something that guys can look at, some studs that maybe went to a bigger school. Like that's one of my guys to look out for. I'll just jump right into that then. Is I've got two guys, both of them are going to be in the state of Nebraska. And one of them broke my heart. He came from Virginia. He was stud at Grand Island High School, picking between Virginia and the University of Nebraska. He chose Virginia, went there for, I think, maybe 2 years. Maybe it was just 1 year. And obviously Virginia's really good. So he got a lot of practice. He got involved in that culture, whatever, then decided he wanted to transfer home. And he didn't pick Nebraska. He picked Creighton.
Gross.
His girlfriend plays volleyball for Creighton. So he chose Creighton. And I think he's going to be a big piece, even if it's off the bench for Creighton. His name's Isaac Trout. He's a beast. He's so good at basketball. And obviously, like I said, he went to Virginia, got bigger, stronger, came off the bench for a couple of games. But Virginia's Virginia. They were making a run. They had all their guys. So he transferred out of there and was thinking about Nebraska, but went to Creighton. And I think it was an underlying thing of the big reason why was because his girlfriend plays for Creighton volleyball. So he picked Creighton over Nebraska. But my other guy plays for Nebraska.
Time out. So that means that she's bad, because if she was good, she'd play for Nebraska.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just
but no disrespect. Yeah, no disrespect.
Yeah, no disrespect. I mean, Nebraska's just the GOAT for women's volleyball. We
Correct.
can all admit it.
Yes. But the other guy plays for Nebraska, and his name that you're not going to want to forget is Keisei Tominaga, one of the best guards in the country shooting the basketball. If he's on, it is incredible. And the fact that he's from Japan, he has played two or 3 years now for their 3-on-3 Olympic Japanese Olympic team, and was selected to the World Games this summer. So he matched up with fucking Luka Doncic for a full game this year.
Wow.
Like he has played one-on-one basically with Luka Doncic, like at the games, and he hit a 3 in his face. So he is a beast. He is a stud, and he's our guy this year. The last couple of years, I was screaming on Twitter, get Keisei the ball, let Keisei cook. Like, he is that guy. And this year, we don't have a choice but to give the ball to Keisei Tominaga, because we don't really have a whole lot of other proven scorers on the team right now. So it is Keisei's team. He got NBA looks last year. He went and did some, tryouts, but then decided to come back. And this is going to be his final year, most likely, because he will be in the NBA next year. You can mark that down as long as, no injuries happen or anything. But if he plays a full year, like he is, whether we're good or not, which I think we're going to be decent, but whether we're good or not, Keisei Tominaga is going to get his points, and he's going to be recognized again throughout the country.
Yeah, I like that little in-state knowledge for us there. I got a guy who was a big, I wouldn't say tournament hero, but a big player in the tournament last year, named Lamont Butler, guard for San Diego State. He's a senior this year. He's coming back to, obviously, they made their first Final Four appearance. Everyone, was surprised with how well San Diego State did. And he's just he's a blue collar guy. He's a gritty guy. And that's what you have to be when you're playing at San Diego State. You're not a star. And he's not a natural scorer, but he hits huge shots. He hits big shots. I think he shot like 50% in the tournament. I think he shot like 25 of 50 or something stupid like that in the NCAA tournament. Like, he just went brazy. And no one's going to be really talking about him, because no one cares about San Diego State. We're focused on the big teams, the big guys, the big, recruits coming in. And so one of the guys, I want to mention, players that I'm watching, Lamont Butler and this San Diego State team. I love the gritty teams, man. I love the teams that do so much more with so less. Shout out to Big Ten West, man. That's the definition of doing so much more with so less. You want to play at an actual, you want to play in the SEC, or do you want to play for the Big Ten West? You know, you got to do so much more with so less. So shout out him. And then my other guy to watch out for is Stephon Castle, guard for Connecticut. He's a freshman. I don't know if you guys know anything about guards from Connecticut, but they have the historical runs in March Madness. It started out with a guy by the name of Kemba Walker, who was famous, led UConn to a national title. And then 2 years later was followed up by a man named Shabazz Napier, who led them to a national title. Well, now they have this cat, Stephon Castle. So this might be a 2-year prediction. You know, this might not be his year, but he's a McDonald's All-American, 6'6" guard, can score, can defend, can rebound, can block. He can do it all. And he's coming into a Huskies team that has a lot of talent. You know, there's a lot of good players on this Connecticut team. I believe they got that Klingon guy at the center position. Like, Connecticut's going to be good. And as we've seen, when you give a Connecticut guard a good team around him, they can make things happen. So yeah, I'm watching this Castle Cat as one of the freshmen I'm looking out for. I wanted to stay away from the big names, you know, your Baycotts, your Loves, or all those guys. I want to stay away from them. I wanted to focus on guys people might not know about that I think are going to be influential in their team's, you know, success. They're make or break players. You know, I think UConn is going to be good. If Castle is the real deal, they could be great, you know, and if he's not, they'll be good. Same thing, you know, San Diego State can make a run if this Butler cat can improve. Kind of reminds me of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler wasn't that good of a college player. He just wasn't. He just was gritty. He was athletic, and he developed his game. I think if Butler can take that step, if Castle can take that step for this team, be very interesting to see what these teams do come March.
Okay. Sounds good. Did that Tominaga you were talking about, Polk, did he play in the game yesterday or not?
He did not. He actually rolled his ankle playing Doan. So shout out Doan, you fucking assholes. Yeah, he played an exhibition against Doan and tweaked his ankle. So they're saying that he's practicing right now and they're gonna, you know, send him through the hard workouts and see if he'll play Thursday. But yeah, we didn't need him yesterday. Kind of dominated that, which was obviously fun. Those are usually, you know, the Nebraska games that we dropped. There's still a couple of them coming up to where, you know, we lose to whoever it is, Gardner Webb or, you know, whatever, like whoever it is, we always drop one of those. Yeah, one of those. So no, he didn't play. Hopefully when he comes back, he can start lighting it up right away. Like I said, he played for Japan, played against Luka Doncic, and like had that experience. So he's got experience that other guys don't. Kind of like in high school, you had those kids that played. I guess everybody plays AAU now, but back when I was in high school, not a lot of people played AAU. And then when you had that kid that played AAU come back from over a summer, you're like, oh shit, like this kid got a lot better than he was last year. And it's because he was playing that competition. I think that's kind of the same thing with Casey, that he's been playing that world ball, playing against NBA caliber guys, and he comes back now and playing in the Big Ten, which is still going to be pretty good. But I think he'll be able to dominate even if the team isn't really as good as Casey is, because I think we're going to be solid. I think we're going to be able to compete much like we did it towards the end of the year last year. But we also have so many transfer ins, and some of them are like hometown kids that are coming back, which is also kind of cool with that transfer portal, where it's like you get, you know, wishing that Trout was one of those guys that could go to Virginia, try it, doesn't work. All right, come back home to Nebraska. Some other guys did the same thing. This Alec guy went to New Mexico, went there, played a lot, played really well from New Mexico, and then I think he's transferring back as like a senior grad transfer, whatever it is, to play for Nebraska because he's from Lincoln. So those things are cool. But like I said, I think our starting 5 last night, only one of them was a returning player for Nebraska. The others were all transfers or freshmen. So, but
Nice.
Keisei Tominaga, remember the name, baby. The Japanese Steph Curry is what they're calling him. So,
okay, sounds good. Noted for sure. All right, gentlemen, let's transition from players to teams. So before we talk about teams that we think might win the national championship, let's talk about like under the radar teams, maybe teams that are being overlooked this season, teams that don't have very good expectations that you think might exceed them. Let's just talk like a couple under the radar teams that you might have that you think might be pretty successful this year. DJ, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, so I'm going to last year's Final Four or Elite Eight. I'm not sure if it is Final Four. I think it is Final Four. And I'm looking at those teams and seeing if they can, they were kind of under the radar when they did it. Maybe they have a little hype coming into this year, but seeing what they can do, because I think you learn so much in that tournament and you can grow, especially if you keep your nucleus of the team. So obviously, first and foremost, San Diego State. Obviously, I talked about Butler earlier. This is a gritty team. They're going to play great defense. They're going to slow the game down. And when you do that, you can play with anybody. You can lose to a Gardner Webb, but you can also beat a Duke when you play that way, when you slow the game down, play defense. So no one cares about San Diego State. No one's giving them hype. They did some special things last year. They got, special things going on. I think they're a team to look out for. Kind of a more hyped one or a more populous one would be UConn. As I talked about with Castle, and then obviously they have that clean. UConn's got a great squad. They made a run last year. Who says they can't make a run again this year? I think they'll be a team that can definitely surprise some people. Because people forget UConn used to be a dynasty. They've kind of it's probably been 6-7 years since Shabazz Napier won. Like they haven't done much recently. Kind of Michigan State vibes, but this could be their year. They have a lot of good things going for them. And then lastly, we all remember FAU, Florida Atlantic, another team that, lit it up last year, surprised everybody, made some crazy runs. Now they're back. And so another team that, maybe not getting the hype, everything carrying over from last year, but potentially those teams that have that experience, man, it goes so far. Playing in those games where it's win or go home, national television, sold out arenas. And you're playing on back to back to back. You have a day off and you're trying to adjust. You were just learning the game script for one team. Now you got to learn the game script for that. Like that experience you gain there is insane. And then the team bonding and everything you go through. And I think it also leaves all three of these teams. None of them won it, right? They're all hungry. When you get a taste of success or a taste of a championship, but you don't get the whole thing, it leaves you hungry. That's why a lot of people were hyped about the Eagles this year in football, because they almost won the Super Bowl, but they didn't. But they had a taste for it, and it gives you an extra fuel in your fire, and it can elevate you to a higher level. Like we were doing this last year, and it wasn't enough to get it done. So now we got to do this times 10x. So yeah, I think all three of these teams. I just think tournament success is so important. As I mentioned, you can learn so much. So yeah, those are the three teams that I think are under the radar, that I think could all do a lot better than expected this year.
Don't take this as me coming across as like douchey or anything, DJ, but UConn won it last year.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
and they're gonna win it again this year, back to back.
You just said none of those three teams won it, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, I was thinking non-power. I was thinking San Diego State and FAU. I knew they'd played each other. UConn did win it last year. I don't know, Kyle.
No, I just don't want the haters coming out and saying, "Oh, DJ,
no, you're good,"
like that. So
you're good. It's questionable whether I know ball. I know how to win games. I don't know if I know the in-depths of players and who transferred where and all the ins and outs of things. I'm not up to date on that, but I know how to win games. If that counts for anything,
for sure.
I can draw up better inbounds plays than most college teams. It's ridiculous. This is going to be a side rant here real quick. How bad some of the inbounds, but they literally are just getting it inbounds. It's like, dude, an inbounds play is a chance to score an easy bucket, a rehearsed play that you can have 10 different. I could draw up 10 inbounds plays right now, and each one would give you an option for a cutter and a three. Like it's so stupid. And then you get to the end of the game and you can see the good coaches, like, boom, they score right away on an inbounds play. Like, oh yeah, that coach is good. It is what it is. But
and that's where you look at what teams have set plays and what teams don't have set plays. Like it is like the older I get, the more I realize how dumb we really were, like as teenagers. Like some of these kids coming in, like their whole life is basketball. They think ball, they think hoop, they think, they don't think X's and O's, they don't think, whatever. So I'm sure like because even I, struggled sometimes remembering plays, or, you got 6, 7 different sets, and then you go out of bounds and there's, 4 or 5 different sets. So it's like, whatever. But yeah, it's pretty amazing how they don't just have like 1 or 2 that they could pull out and be like, hey, dude, like just screen this way if we scream this, screen that way if we scream this. Like just have 1 or 2 that's like, that you can pull out in big situations, because it's gonna happen. You're gonna have situations sideline out of bounds where they're gonna be taking away your Jelly Walker for UAB, where he's not gonna be able to get the basketball. Who I think he's in the NBA now, but still, like if it's that guy, you're gonna have a way to get him open. And if you don't have any set plays, then you're screwed, because they're clearly going to take him away. And then what are you going to do?
Yeah. Like the amount of times they just pass it in.
Yeah, they
It's
just throw it
ridiculous.
up. Yeah.
Dude, it's like even when you have a main player, dude, using him as a distraction. Brad Stevens is really good with this. When he was a coach with the Celtics, is he would use the best player as a distraction piece, and everyone's like, "Oh, this screen is for him." But what you didn't see is they screened for the screener, and that was the actual play, and he's wide open for 3. It's like it's so simple. Yet I would assume it would be tough with all the amount of plays you have to memorize. But you're a collegiate athlete. You gotta.
Yep.
The fans expect it.
Yeah, well said. Polk, what about you? Any teams that are under the radar, you think?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the year of the SEC. When it comes to throughout the regular season, I think they're going to beat the crap out of each other. But I think they are very deep. And when it comes to big time teams, I think one team that I think is rated pretty high, I think they're in the top 10 right now. So maybe it's not as crazy of a pick, but I think Tennessee is going to be really, really good. They've always just been like a good defensive team, a physical team, but they've never really had the scores. And I think now they've had a couple of years of some guys that have stuck around that are going to be good scorers for them. So I think they're going to be able to score the basketball, and they're going to play really well. But like I said, the SEC is pretty deep. Obviously, Kentucky is everybody's favorite because they're just constantly bringing in 5-star athletes. But you look at Arkansas, I think Arkansas and Bus can have a really good season again this year. Alabama, they lose a lot, and they had a crazy year last year with allegations and all that stuff, but they're going to be really good. So I think Tennessee is the main team for me that I think is that that pretty team that I'll be watching kind of throughout to see how they fend everybody off in the SEC, and it's kind of that team that I think is going to be looked at towards the end of the year as like, holy crap, this is one of the favorites to make a run. A team out of the Big Ten that I think is everybody's kind of down on a little bit this year is Wisconsin, but I think Wisconsin's going to be good. I think Chucky Hepburn, I'm pretty sure he's still there. They've got some young guys coming in, and they've basically returned a lot of guys from last year. They were in the NIT, but just they always seem to have a solid group, and it feels like every 4 or 5 years they have that one team that really does really well and goes a good length. And I guess I didn't look up to see if Chucky Hepburn's still there. I think he should be, though. He should only be like a junior, I think. But he's a Nebraska kid that chose Wisconsin over Nebraska, so we don't like him, but he is a beast. And I think Wisconsin could make some noise in a Big Ten that we've already seen. Michigan State, they were the odds-on favorite, but they just lost to JMU last night. So Purdue is going to destroy, in the regular season, but I think Wisconsin's a team that a lot of people are sleeping on that could maybe, if they sneak into the tournament, with a decent Big Ten, could make a little bit of a run with the athletes that they have. And I guess, they're on there, but Marquette out of the Big East, sure. They tripped up a couple of times last year in a pretty solid Big East. But I think they are a very, very good team who are going to be a little bit angry from how last year went. DJ, you talked about that, adding fuel to the fire. They lost some games last year that they definitely should not have lost. The Big East is one of those where everybody's going to be talking about UConn. Everybody's going to be talking about, oh, Creighton, they were close to the Final Four last year, and maybe sleeping a little bit too much on Marquette, who, again, I guess, the state of Wisconsin is going to be a basketball state this year, but that Wisconsin Marquette matchup could be a lot of fun here. I think they usually play in the first couple of weeks, so that might be a game to look out for here the next few weeks. But I think Marquette is another team out of the Big East that could really make some noise.
Okay. Sounds good. I like those. To wrap it up, I have a couple here. I'm going to go to the ACC for one of them. In the ACC, all the teams you talk about, that might win: Duke, North Carolina, Virginia. I like Clemson. I think Clemson's really, really good this year. They have one of the most experienced coaches in college basketball, and Brad Brownell. He's on his 14th season with the team. They have a solid returner that can beat you in the inside and Chase Hunter. And they also have a guy who shot 47% from behind the arc last season, and Alex Hemingway. They picked up some big-time transfers in the portal. They got Joseph Girard from Syracuse, who had averaged 16 points per game. They got a 6'10 center from North Carolina State in Jack Clark. They got a guy that's going to come off the bench for them from Air Force. His name is Jake Heidbreeder. He averaged 15.4 points per game. They have 3 starters and a projected 6-man currently that average more than 35% from behind the arc. They are going to be a solid 3-point shooting team this year, and they got height down low. I think they can make a run in the ACC tournament this year, and I think we could very well see them in March. So I like Clemson a lot. And then going to a mid-major team, I like Memphis a lot this year. I'm not sure how people on the panel, how you guys feel about Penny Hardaway. I'm a huge fan of Penny Hardaway. I like him a lot, and I trust in his process. Most people will be surprised that I have Memphis on this list. As you guys know, they had a complete roster overhaul this year. In fact, their starters projected, they got Alabama transfer Javon Quinterly, Florida State transfer Caleb Mills, Wichita State transfer Jaquan Walton, and St. John's transfer forward David Jones. 4 transfers are expected to start for this Memphis team, but there were 4 guys who were they weren't the best on their team, but they were top 2 or 3, and they're combining all that together along with returning center Malcolm Dandridge. I think that all these middle of the pack guys on their team coming together to start for Memphis, I think that's going to work out very well for them. Obviously, they're all super seniors now, so this is it, but I think this is the year that Memphis makes a pretty deep run in March Madness because of that roster haul that Penny did. So I like Memphis a lot this year too.
When you throw a bunch of transfers in, it's either going to go really well or really poorly. And ideally, it goes poorly at some point in the season so that you can figure your shit out, figure everything out. Like that's the thing. Purdue just dominates all season. Then they get to March Madness and get stomped in the first or second round by some team no one's ever heard of.
That's the thing. That's the thing where if what Kyle's saying is true, is them being super seniors or grad transfers. If that's the case, then I think he's right in assuming that it's going to go the positive route. Because if they are, freshmen, go to Florida State, you're a freshman, you transfer out. If you go halfway through the season, maybe you're not getting the minutes that you want. You're playing, 8 minutes instead of 15, or a couple games go the wrong way. You can check out and say, screw it, I'm going back to Florida State next year, or I'm going to, UAB, or I'm going back to Florida, whatever it is. But if you're seniors and this is your last time, you got to get through it. No matter what happens, if you go on a 3-game losing streak, you can't just say, screw it, we're done. I'll just go to wherever next year. No, this is the year that you have to do it. So there is the scare of 4 or 5 different guys who were studs on their team over there coming to play together and not playing with each other ever. And now this is the year that you got to come together and play and try to make a run. But if it is a last chance effort for a lot of these guys, then I think you got a better shot of doing that than if it is, just a bunch of transfers coming in trying to make some noise.
For sure. And I always think any adversity a team can face throughout the season prior to March Madness is so big. Being able to handle a losing streak and just learning. You can learn so much more from a loss than a win because you know what you did wrong. In a win, sometimes it's we could have played better here, here, and here. But in a loss, it's pretty definitive. Like, okay, we got beat here. You know, they got way more second chance points. We need to hit the board, some. So you need that adversity. And I think the teams that are tried and true, which is why your SEC take is, you know, it's going to be a gauntlet in the SEC. You know, it's every game it's going to be tough. And I think those teams bode so much better for March Madness when you're tested, tried and true, and you're going into March.
Yeah. No, that's well said. And I think we kind of nailed a lot of different corners of the college basketball, which is good. So before we get into our rapid fire segment, let's just put our nuts on the table, I guess, here, boys. NCAA tournament, who's gonna win it? So I got a few odds here. Obviously, if you have another team that you want to throw out there, by all means do. Odds on favorite, we got a 4-way tie right now between Michigan State, Duke, Kansas, and Kentucky at plus 1,200. Purdue at plus 1,400, UConn at plus 1,800, Arizona at plus 2,000, Marquette at plus 2,200. Polk, we'll start with you. Who's winning it all this year in March?
The chalk pick is Duke.
Yep.
I think that's it. I think it's Duke's year again. Like I said, there's those few teams where it's like every couple of years they have the talent, but maybe aren't, you know, expected to win it all. I think this year for Duke is a different year where they've got talent coming back. They've got some talent coming up. Obviously, Duke always gets freshmen. It's Shire's second year. I think this is the year that Duke is going to be looking to not only, you know, show that they've got NBA talent, but put together a really good team, and they have a chance to do that in an ACC that I think maybe not. I don't think there's a bad conference out there, but I think the ACC is pretty top heavy when it comes to their really good teams this year. I think Duke is the favorite, one of the favorites. Obviously, they're tied for the top favorite here, but and then I think it's somebody out of the SEC, and I don't think it's going to be Kentucky. I think Tennessee. Again, I'm so high on Tennessee. I haven't even seen them play a real game yet. But I just think Tennessee is going to be so good this year. I saw them in an exhibition. Can't remember who they played, but they put it on TV for some reason, and it wasn't even like a real exhibition game. But they just looked so good. So I would probably put a future on Tennessee. But again, like we all know, the tournament is just nuts. Like it's just, you never know. And obviously everything can happen. But I think if I had to put my life on it, I would go Duke. Put a future on it, I'm going Tennessee.
Fair. That's fair. DJ, what about you?
Yeah, no, I think the chalk pick is Duke. Like you mentioned, they haven't won in a while. They're always getting the best recruits. They're a historical blue blood program. Like, they're just good. They always are. And they're due. Like, they're just due. Like Villanova's kind of due, you know, they're due for one as well. But they just don't have the same talent as Duke has. For my vibe, or for my kind of more of a long shot, I'll say, strictly vibes here. Vibes are saying Texas plus 4,000 is the move. Seems like they haven't won in forever. They got guard play is so big in the tournament. Like, having a good guard in the tournament, like as we've seen, Zach Edey in the tournament, it's just he can't control the ball at all times. He can get the ball and he can score, but he can't control the ball. And so obviously with Texas having Max at the guard spot, I think that's huge to have a guard that can control. I mean, some of the best teams have had great guards that we've seen. A lot of any team that you see win it has had some great guard running the show, because they have to get the ball in. They have to be the one to take the big shot when there's no time left. You're not going to throw it and then have Edey take 3 dribbles and launch up a 3. Like, that's insane. The guard's got to take the shot. So I'm going Texas, straight vibes though. No research, nothing, just straight vibes.
Okay. Sounds good. This could very well be a disaster for all three of us, but I also have Duke as my chalk pick to win the NCAA tournament. We talked how much we like Kyle Filipowski.
I love Kyle so much.
Yeah, he's so good. I'm excited to watch him play this year. You know, they got returning starters Jeremy Roach and Tyrese Proctor. They have 3 top 40 recruits. Jared McCain is a top 10 recruit. He's starting for them this year. They got Caleb Foster and TJ Power both coming off the bench. And sometimes like teams get hot during the year, they cool off and they get hot again. I see this being that with Duke as well. They put up 92 points in their opening game. I know it was against Dartmouth, who's an Ivy League school. I understand that. And it's early, but there's no denying the direction that Duke's going. They're going nothing but up. I also like Duke to win the NCAA tournament. For a value pick, I talked about them earlier. I like USC a lot this year. I like Boogie Ellis, Isaiah Collier. When Bronny James comes back, he's going to be good. That backcourt might be arguably the best backcourt in the country this year. I like USC a lot this year. So if I had to go, like Polk said, a future, I'd put a future on USC. But if I had a gun to my head and I had to choose a team, I also would choose Duke. So
Curse of 3.
Yep, curse of 3. We'll see if it is true. But
We broke Oscar Sheboy.
I kind of blame us 3 for Oscar.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it has to be us. I've done the math. It has to be us. There's no one else that could be responsible for him falling off like he did.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, but that's college basketball, baby. That's why we love it, because we'll be looking back and we'll be like fucking idiots. Like Duke lost in the second round.
They didn't even make the tournament.
Yeah. Something like, obviously injuries can happen and whatever, but I just, like you said, DJ, they're just due. Like we haven't seen a Duke team go, a long ways in the tournament yet, and it's going to come down to seeding and all that stuff too. And we don't know where Duke is going to be at in what region they're going to be at. Are they going to run into my Tennessee Volunteers, in the Sweet 16? Like what, it's just a matter of, this is a long shot pick. So all of us picking the same 3 is pretty dumb to all pick Duke. It's such a long shot pick that like, but if we're all right, we look fucking sick. So, but yeah, it's just,
If Duke wins it all and Kyle Filipowski wins the Wooden Award, we might be the sharpest people alive.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get together and party about that one, because
Duke's gonna have to get past a tough second round matchup against Nebraska though.
Hell yeah, they are, baby.
9 seed Nebraska. Let's get real here.
Hey,
9 seed Nebraska is gonna be a tough second round matchup.
If we're in the second round of the NCAA tournament, a team, mind you, that is the only Power 6 team to never win an NCAA tournament game. We're the only Power, I guess they call it Power 5, so I'm guessing you can probably include the Power 6. The only Power 6 team in the country to never win a tournament game. I think 5 years ago it was us and Northwestern, and then Northwestern had that big win, which knocked them out of that. So it's literally just us. So I don't care if we play God himself in the second round. Like, just win that first round game, and that second round game we could lose by 90. I wouldn't care at all. Just the fact that we were there would be just, I'd be elated. But we don't get the looks. That's the toughest part. Like, we have to have a great season to get into the tournament, because there's been a couple of years where we have a decent year, but we don't have the name. Like, we're Nebraska basketball. Nobody cares about Nebraska basketball. We don't have like there's been years where if our name was Baylor, if our name was Butler, if we were, Gonzaga, like, we would 100% been in the tournament. I think there was a year, 2-3 years ago, where maybe even more than that now. I'm getting pretty old, but when we lost to Kansas was a top 5 team at the time. They came to Lincoln. We lost to Kansas by 1. I think it was like by 3 or 4, but they hit a last second 3 basically. With like 5 seconds left to go up by 1, and then they made a couple free throws or whatever. But like, we were that close from making the tournament. Like, it was 1 game. If we win that game, we're in. We should have probably been in anyways, but since we're Nebraska, we don't have the name, we don't have the prestige of getting into the tournaments, we're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. So we have to make that splash of winning that huge game, which is tough because we don't often do that. And we don't really play like, we might get like a Michigan State or like whatever, but like nobody, especially after the last couple of years that we've had, nobody wants to play Nebraska. And like Kansas, they know better now. Like, they're not coming they're not coming to the bank thinking that they're just going to dominate us. Like we've taken it to some teams the last couple of years. Creighton is one of them. We hurt Creighton last year. We beat them by 20. Actually, I think we beat them by 10. I think it was a 10-point game, but we were up by 20 for a good chunk of that game. And like we dominated them. And it was like they were like, oh shit, like this is not good. So I don't know, dude. But you got me all riled up on Husker basketball, baby. Like,
I love it. I love the passion, man.
It's one of those where like the basketball team is complete opposite of the football team. Like the basketball team, and I guess obviously Husker football is like completely changed this year. Like we obviously have a new regime and everything's, whatever. But like over the last 10 years, it would be Nebraska football wins the games that they're supposed to win. And then the big games come around, we lose 63-3 to Ohio State. And then, it's like, oh, great. Like, whatever. Let's go 10-4 to the Holiday Bowl and fucking play Washington and Arizona and whatever. Basketball was the opposite. We would, lose to Bethune-Cookman and we would lose to fucking Gardner-Webb. And then we would go to the Big Ten, the Big Ten slate, and we would lose to a shitty Big Ten team. And then all of a sudden we'd beat Wisconsin, and then we'd beat Iowa, and then we'd beat Michigan State, and it was like, holy shit, here we go. Like, we're going to make a run. And then we go last year into the Big Ten tournament, and we lose to Minnesota, who we beat twice in the regular season. Like, it's just those things where, you can never – Iowa has to deal with it too. They just usually deal with it in the tournament and not, in the Big Ten tournament. They deal with it in the actual tournament. But, I mean, Iowa's a team who Nebraska's kind of had their number the last couple of years. But I don't know, dude. It's just
Iowa's going to get to March Madness. They're just not going to win many games.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, they will get outrun by a more athletic team.
We had arguably one of the better teams that I can remember in history, and we lost to fucking Richmond. So
didn't Iowa have like not back to back, but two Naismith winners with Garza and then Murray? Did Murray end up winning Naismith?
No, he lost to Sheboy, I'm pretty sure.
He did? Okay.
Yeah, he lost.
Well, they had basically two Naismith winners. Best player in the country. Iowa had two of them, basically.
Yeah.
0 tournament wins.
Yep.
Brutal.
Yeah,
not that women's team though.
He got second that year, but he did lose to Sheboy now that I think about it. So, but back to back. We got killed by Oregon with Garza, and then they
were so much more athletic. I watched the
unbelievably
first 5 minutes. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Iowa can barely get up and down the floor, and Oregon's just kind of like jogging as they're running past that. I was like, oh, this is gonna be bad.
And then we had like one of our more athletic teams with, the Murray brothers, and I think Wieskamp might have been on that team or something like that. When we lost to frickin' Richmond, like we were a 4 seed. We won the Big Ten tournament, and
Murray couldn't play D when it mattered. I remember.
And it was like the last time Nebraska made it to the tournament was I don't know, 2013, 2014, when we had to play in the play-in games. We were like an 11 seed or whatever.
I remember that.
We had to play Baylor, and Baylor was like just so freaking athletic. They had that guy that ended up not being able to play in the NBA because he had the eye thing.
Yeah,
that big guy. Like, that was a really good Baylor team. So
Feud
it was
or something, Isaiah something.
Wasn't it Isaac? Jonathan? Was it Jonathan Isaac? Right?
No, Jonathan Isaac didn't play for. No,
it was Isaiah. I don't know if his first.
I thought it was Isaiah
P
or something.
I'm thinking of somebody else. Disregard.
Yeah, Jonathan Isaac. I don't know where he played at, but he definitely not Baylor.
Yeah, but that was like I said, we're gonna have to have a fantastic season to get onto the radar, and that's why. I mean, if you got a guy like Casey Tominaga who's drilling 6 threes a night, maybe that will make enough of a splash. Yeah, maybe that'll make enough of a splash, because we just have to have, that we need to have something to get on the radar. If we're just winning games,
not enough.
It's not enough. You got to have that big splash. You got to have
marketability, man.
Part of it is politics. Like, politics are involved. Like, Kansas can have a down year this year, they're still probably going to make the tournament if they play in some big games, if they win some decent games. Like, they can have a year where we have the same record, but Kansas is going to get in over Nebraska because they're Kansas. They got the guys. Like, they got everybody wants to see Kansas in there. So, but you know, got to do what you got to do. You got to overcome. Got to overcome.
Overcome and move on.
You bet.
Survive and advance.
Yes, sir.
All right, gents. So this has been fun. Let's round out the show with rapid fire. So, Polk, I think this is your first time you ever playing rapid fire. But so how this works is I get 10 questions here. So basically, you just give an answer. You don't give an explanation. You just give an answer.
No explanation is allowed.
Yep. No.
Unless you get challenged. You do get one challenge flag.
Yeah. So you get one challenge flag. So if you want to hear someone's explanation, if you hear something and you're like, well, I want to hear more about that, you can challenge. You do get one. All three of us get one. And we'll just go through. Let's just do the same order every time. Let's go DJ first and then Polk, and then I'll end it. So we'll just do the same order every single time. And then, yeah, if you get challenged, you explain it. If you don't get challenged, you just give your answer. So if we're ready, let's get to it. What team is going to win the ACC?
Duke is my lock. Clemson is my value.
Duke.
Duke is my lock. Clemson's my value. Who will win the Big Ten?
Purdue lock. Wisconsin value.
Same thing. Purdue lock. And if we're given to Wisconsin,
yeah, I just included a value because that's what we normally do. I didn't know.
Okay, fair. We'll do that from here on out. That's fine.
I actually had Michigan State as my lock, and I had Wisconsin as value.
Nice.
Who will win the Big 12?
Kansas lock. Iowa State value.
Ooh.
Tons of value on Iowa State.
Okay.
Texas lock. Iowa State value.
Whoa. Okay.
Iowa State's gonna have a good squad this year, boys. Just hear it first.
I have Kansas as my lock and Baylor as value. Who will win the Big East?
UConn lock. Nova value. Villanova.
Marquette lock. Creighton value.
About threw up saying that.
I'm gonna get wild with it. I have my lock and value to win the Big East as Creighton.
Ooh.
You sick fuck. Challenge, Kyle. Challenge.
So in my notes I had the biggest thing, Baylor Shireman returns. You know, Baylor Shireman was an absolute stud at South. I think he was at South Dakota State before he was at Creighton. He was a stud there. Ryan Kalkbrenner returned. Kalkbrenner's an All-American this year. He's going to do good. They got a huge transfer. His name is Stephen Ashworth from Utah State. He was a first-team All-Mountain West player last year. And the Big East regular season doesn't dictate sometimes how they do in the tournament. And I think that Greg McDermott is a proven coach, and I think that they can do it. So I think they're going to surprise people. Like last year, they're going to beat UConn. They're going to beat Marquette, Villanova, all those teams, and they're going to win the Big East. So that's why I think it's going to be Creighton. I hate it. Like you, I hate it, but I think that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, I had to challenge it. Obviously, by challenging it, I just had to hear you talk about how good Creighton's going to be. So that was pretty annoying. But they are, like you said, they are that where they win their big games, but then they lose to teams like Nebraska, which is pretty fun. Which I hope happens again this year, but they're going to be pretty upset about the last couple of years. But yeah, they're pretty good.
Makes the game that much more sweeter if they are really good and Nebraska does beat them, though.
True.
The tournament committee won't even look at it.
No, I don't give a fuck. But it's usually because it's pretty early too. Like we usually we'll play them before conference things begin. But yeah, it doesn't. Who cares? Like, you know, they're in Nebraska. Bums. Committee sucks, dude. We deserve better.
Who will win the Pac-12?
USC as my lock, Stanford as my value.
USC, and we'll go value UCLA.
Okay, sounds good. I have USC as my lock, and I have Utah as my value.
Ute.
And who will win the SEC?
Tennessee as my lock, Arkansas as my value.
Yeah, I had Tennessee, and we'll say Alabama.
Okay. I have Kentucky as my lock, Arkansas as my value. So that is where I'm going to go. All right, let's shift away from this just for a second here. Power 6. Who is going to be the first Power 6 coach fired this year?
Kenny Payne, Louisville, also known as Louisville.
Kenny Payne, Louisville. I had the same one.
That's
Same
insane. Kenny Payne, Louisville.
Yeah,
Pressure's on, baby.
Louisville sucks this year. So.
The dude snapped his leg, and they haven't been the same since.
Yeah.
I'd be sick too after watching that.
Did you guys see, just off topic really quick? So Louisville played UMBC last night or Monday night, lost by 1. UMBC had a chance to send it to overtime and missed a free throw. So that's the only reason Louisville won that game.
Yeah, and it's been one of those. Obviously, we're not doing explanations, but since we all three have them, Louisville has been like they are a basketball school. Like they are.
Yeah.
It's Louisville and Kentucky. Like that's been the rivalry, and it's just been Kentucky for the last like 5 to 10 years. And Louisville prides themselves on being a basketball school, and they haven't been good the last couple of years. This was like something's got to change soon. And like obviously it didn't start off on the best foot. Obviously UNBC or whatever has made their runs and done their shit in the tournament, but like yeah, it's Louisville. Like you can't have that first game of the season.
Yep.
If you're on the hot seat, which he is.
Oh, big time on the hot seat for sure. So I said a school in Power 6, basically a mid-major. What is a mid-major school that can make a run in March?
SDSU, baby. San Diego State.
Okay.
Princeton.
Ooh,
I like it. I like that as an Ivy League supporter. I appreciate that. Florida Atlantic. Who is the most overrated team going into this season?
It's not even close. Purdue.
Ooh, okay.
Kansas.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is a good one. Gonzaga is mine.
Forever overrated. That's brilliant, Kyle. You could say that year after year. Yep.
DJ, I'm going to challenge you. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm curious on your reasoning.
Purdue's all sizzle, no steak. If you want a team that's going to dominate the regular season, Minnesota Viking style, and then choke in the playoffs, Purdue is your team. Like, so I don't know how they're not the most overrated team year. It's same with Gonzaga. Like every year, Gonzaga would dominate the regular season, and then they'd lose in the tournament. They finally won that one tournament. They won one, right? With like Suggs or some shit like that. I don't know. I thought they won one in the last 5 years. They haven't? Classic Gonzaga. Go basically undefeated and then lose in the tournament. I didn't think Purdue's the same way. Like, they're not overrated in the regular season. Like, they're going to be a great team. They're going to win a lot of games. But the way I'm looking at it is they're not going to do shit in March Madness. And that's kind of where it matters. Like, that's the only thing that really matters. Like, as long as you get to March Madness, then it's the only thing that matters. All other games are irrelevant. Whether you won games by 15 or lost by 15 doesn't really matter. And so with Purdue, all sizzle, no steak.
Okay, no, that's
because like they haven't even made like good runs in the tournament either. Like they've just gotten slapped early a lot, like a surprising amount.
Okay, sounds good. Then last question I got is one game that you're circling on your calendar for this season, a game that you think is a must watch.
UNC Duke always.
I think it's February 3rd, Tennessee, Kentucky.
Ooh, that's a good fucking
That
one.
is a good one.
Yeah.
I got December 1st, Allen Fieldhouse, Yukon, Kansas.
Ooh.
So, yeah, those 3 really good games there for sure. But, gentlemen, this has been fun. It's good to chat it up with you. Polk, thanks as always again for coming on the show as a recurring guest. You now have to say yes anytime I ask you to come on. So
absolutely. If I'm not calling games myself, I love chatting it up with the boys, talking some college basketball, college football, whatever it may be. Gotcha, boys.
Yeah, no, I love having you on, Polk. You're always good vibes, a good time. There's always a good laugh or two in there. And an incredible amount of knowledge, which I don't necessarily have in college basketball. So it's better to surround yourself with smarter people, I think is what they say. So yeah, that's what I try and do. But we are always happy to have you on and excited to see if some of your wilder takes are going to come true, like Zach Edey last year. You set the bar a little high on your first one. You really overdid yourself.
Hey, I'm partial to the big boys, so
Yeah.
obviously they worked out last year, but the top favorites being big boys this year didn't help me out any. But yeah, it should be a fun year. Hopefully, like I said, Kansas being the overrated team. I don't know. I think they're relying too much on Hunter Dickinson, who's a big guy. We talked about guards being, in the tournament. Guards are the guys to go to, and Hunter Dickinson guy, tell you what, he's a character. And I don't think he's gonna fit in the Kansas way very, very well. But we'll see. Should be a fun year.
He's at a podcast at Barstool with Marty Mush and Jordan Bohannon. Absolutely the most
Three
hated
cringiest
people you
people.
can think of do a podcast together.
That podcast sucks, dude. It
Is it
sucks.
bad?
I hate it. Well, I don't like Bohannon, obviously, as a Husker guy, so I don't like Bohannon. Marty Mush is Marty Mush. He sucks. Like he's not like he's probably a fine guy, like if you met him, but like just intellectually trying to lead the podcast, not good. And Hunter Dickinson, like they talked to him through the season. So I mean, there's some times where he couldn't talk about things, or he's not like super intellectual and smart. So like it's not like I don't know. It's just they just sit there and don't really say anything, and Bohannon kind of takes over, and he's like fucking 30 already, and probably still playing somewhere. But yeah, it's not a good podcast. And Dickinson, like just the way like that was arguably the worst commitment video in the history of. I don't know if you guys saw it with his fucking GarageBand sound effects and his commitment video to Kansas, like so bad. And I just think Kansas is going to rely way too much on him. So if he has a couple bad games here or there, kind of like what Michigan was doing, where everything was flowing through him, and if he has a couple bad games or they take him away, like it's tough. It's tough when your best player is a big and a true big. Like he can shoot, but he is a true big. Like Filipowski is probably Duke's best player, but he can like ball. He can handle the ball. Like he can, play more of maybe a power forward, small forward if need be. But when your best player is a true big like Purdue, if Zach Edey is their best player, like you're going to get into some tough situations. So I just think Kansas is going to have a tough time with teams that have good guards like Texas. Some teams like Iowa State that could come in and cause some issues. And in the regular season, you drop some big games like that while playing good teams early, like UConn. Like that's why teams don't want to play those games, because they play those games, you lose to UConn, and then you go back into the regular season and play Iowa State, lose to Iowa State, and then you play Texas and lose to Texas, and all of a sudden, you lost the Big 12 title, regular season title, and you may be in shambles, but we'll see. Kansas always seems to prove us wrong.
I think it'll be an adjustment going from Big 10 to Big 12, like for him, what he's used to. Like as defenders, like the Big 12 is way more athletic.
Oh yeah.
The Big 10 is definitely thicker. Like they got some big boys in the Big 10 with obviously Edey and all them cats. They used to have Garza, but the Big 12 is way more athletic. So Dickinson's power and I'm interested to see how he transitions to the Big 12. So I think it is going to be a much more difficult transition than he is anticipating.
Yeah,
he'll be bigger than everybody for sure, but they will be way more athletic.
But yes, DJ, I listened to a little bit of that and like Polk said, it's the premier college basketball podcast or Barstool, and it stinks.
Yeah, I would never give it the time of day.
And obviously as a Hawkeye fan, I love Bohannon, but like Dickinson's tough. I hate Marty Mush. I know Polk said he might be a fine guy. I don't like Marty Mush, so that doesn't help it either. But
yeah, I'm team
after
Hank.
like they had Barstool Bench Mob, which was with Jake Marsh and Rico, which Polk doesn't like Rico either. But that's another.
I'm a Rico guy now. I'm unblocked.
Yes.
He's unblocked now. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm a Rico
let's
guy.
go.
I'm a writer, especially after I'm a big Pick'em guy. I love watching Pick'em, and I have actually flipped on Pick'em. Like every time I watch Pick'em, I'm like, they're picking on Rico. Like they're trying, they're doing some things to Rico right now that I don't think is acceptable. They're trying way too hard to get Rico back to his ways. So I'm a rider now, and I'm unblocked from Rico. And Mark Titus is now with Barstool. He's got a college basketball podcast. So that's a pretty good podcast to listen to.
I didn't think about that. Mark Titus is the Mark Titus show. I do listen to that.
Yeah.
That I do listen to.
Yep. So that'll be mainly college basketball focused now, I think, too, because he's a former D1 Ohio State basketball player, and he's going to talk about college basketball. So I don't know. I don't even know if the other one's going to exist anymore or not.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about
the
other
other ones, but
I like the Mark Titus show, but I do miss Titus and Tate. That was one of my favorite podcasts.
Yeah, true.
Again, another story for another time, but that's kind of what we do when we get the boys together. But yeah, Polk, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. This has been fun. We got a big show planned next time we're on here in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. But that'll do it for episode of 98 of Gambling Feud. You can find me on Twitter at CodaCapriCal. Polk, what's your ad on Twitter? I forgot to ask you that.
You know what? I will give out my work Twitter. My other one, is a little bit crazy, but I'll be talking some college basketball on my work Twitter as well, which is Zach Polk KDOM. So check that out. The other one's Polk Nation for life if you want to follow there, but Zach Polk KDOM.
Follow
Zach.
Yeah, see,
it's only knowing you as Polk. I'm like, what is his first name? I was like, I don't know it. And Zach, I'll note that.
Join the club. Join the club. There's people I went to college with that might listen to this podcast and be like, oh shit, I didn't know that.
Who the fuck is Zach?
You can find me on Twitter at CodaCapriCal, and DJ for 98 episodes. Wrap it up for us, buddy.
You can find me on Twitter at DJLow4422. Thank you for tuning in. And tune in again in a couple weeks for our amazing draft for the Gambling Feud Cup.
Deuces.